Alrighty. Looks like we got everything set. Let's do a little volume test here. All right. Awesome. So let's go. What's up, Semper? Hey, buddy. You like that misspelled Saturday there? You want somebody to comment on your channel and tell you something, misspell something. That'll get you traffic. Good afternoon, my friends. Happy Saturday. Hello, hello. All right, so we're going to hop in here. We're just going to do this. Might be a little bit of, as we start to get into these every Saturday streams, might be a little bit of a just reminder, slight recap for some of the more seasoned members, but I do want to start touching on a little bit of sentiment, not too much. I'm going to produce some videos. I got 2 down already. For the week here, for Christmas, we got a lot of time off, so we're going to come out with those first and then slowly move into a whole bunch of the other sentiment trade stuff. We're at all-time highs and a lot of sentiment, smart money versus dumb money. A lot of stuff isn't going to be super crystal clear right now. So our main focus is going to be the setup, okay? So the first and foremost thing we do is start on the weekly. So this entire video here is going to be how we set up for that next week. We'll talk futures and SPY. So we're going to do just a really light setup, tops, bottoms, targets, so on and so forth. So as we start on the weekly, right, we have obviously the Powell dump candle, and we tested some pretty good psychological numbers like 600, a lot of the 10s in there, 590, 580, 10 SMA daily. As we move into where this coulda, woulda, shoulda topped, right, we have to pick a candle, right, back in the history, especially on the weekly, to pick a top. And if I'm setting this up, I'm looking for very specific candles. And here at BRT, we take algorithms into consideration. So things that actually tag into a moving average, a Fibonacci sequence, something that had a gap tag. The candle creation on the weekly, daily, whatever you're fibbing out or looking for, needs to have an interaction point with something to be valid. If it does not, we start looking for something like a high range candle, something very large like this, just big, prominent, dominant candle. Red, green, doesn't matter what it is, or somewhat like a perfect doji like this, or low body doji like this. So these candles need to mean something, okay? So when we start to look for those top picks, and when I set up my morning routine here, I'm going to start looking for, hey, did we top out on some kind of interesting candle yet? Now, this candle right here, weekly, interesting, 8.5. Why? Well, we have a gap tag back here, and this is on a weekly time frame, mind you. The scariest one is actually farther down, right here. This is a weekly gap. We'll come back to that in separate videos and recaps when we get down there, but not for the public. But when we come into the interesting candles like this one here that touched a prior gap that needed to be filled, or let's say this green candle right here that is tagging a 10 SMA. Now, both these candles are interesting points on the weekly, right? Because we're starting the longest standing time frame, because they have no golden pocket tags from Fibonacci. So if I were to go on to these interesting candles that here had touched the gap and filled it, and I fib that out, and then I take the next one that's somewhat interesting here that touched a 10 SMA, high-low, and it also has no golden pocket tag. I would start creating a couple demographics of pullback zones coming into the week or daily, right? Because we have to start on the weekly, and these are the most interesting candles we have in the last few months of trading. And these are ones we have on our long-term swing chart. So if we just focus on just some of the small points of Fibonacci, when we see these start to break down from support or resistance, like right here at the 654, that's clearly the 2618 from our 10 SMA, no golden pocket tag. So if something runs away from this, it hits the 1618, consolidates, pushes up, hits that 2618, perfect drop down, okay? So we'll start with that candle first, because that is the closer one. We're just going to talk slightly on the no GP tag. When something has a no GP tag, we high-low fib it, right, on the weekly, daily, whatever you're going on. And the golden pocket does not have a tag right away, even that next candle, right? It runs away outside of the fib range, so above 100%, above that 562.97, runs all the way to resistance points, right? So the 1618 didn't really have that much of a tag resistance point, right? It actually just kind of snapped through and went through. This is actually a sign of momentum and continuation trend, where if Fibonacci would snap through, come back down, test something outside the Fibonacci, aka 10 SMA daily on trend, right? And that are weekly, and that's on trend. So it pushed through the 1618. So when it came back down, found support, it had a higher likelihood to continue pushing because we didn't respect the 1618. As we came up to the 2618, though, that's a different story. That's a much stronger Fibonacci at 654. Now that came in and finally tagged very close to. I mean, if we come back in here and really dial in exactly where, and we want to get close as we can, but if we come in and really dial in the fib, don't beat yourself up too much if it's not exact, but make sure it's close, right? Just enough. All right. So even with a little adjustment, we didn't quite tag into the 2618. Now, again, this is a weekly time frame, and us as confirmation traders, we wait till price action gets pretty close to something, and then obviously plan for that trade. So we did come into the 2618 here, and then again, which is a very interesting one here, we had a common gap that gapped over right here, came down, filled, and launched itself, and then that was our consolidation week, and then the Apollo week. Now, interestingly enough, the 2618 was the first, we'll call it a tag, right here, pullback, and then created just consolidation, right? Just another big old flag candle, 11.4, so on and so forth, and continued on trend. In this weekly time frame, it's telling us that everything is still, pretty strong, and the likelihood of continuation is great until what? An outside source of catalyst, right? Fear, hype, greed. We need something to break us outside of the range of this trend of the week to knock us back down into that 2618. So we drop down into the daily chart, right? Once we set a weekly Fibonacci, and we start to look for cumulatively, moves here. So here's that 2618 on the daily tag, comes down. It actually loops the 10 SMA. So if you watch our videos on the channel on the indicators we use, we talk about 10 SMA and moving average looping. That is a system we use. So it broke over the 10, came under, looped it, and continued that swoop up. Now, under that 2618, we didn't get a clean break, right? We finally tagged it right here for the first time on the daily, and it did cause a reaction, right? We shied it here. So what do we know about shies? A shy that comes all the way back down generally comes back and hits into that level, right? Or at least has a chance to, and you can identify that by once we start a base and starts getting higher low, higher highs, you know where your target is, right? That Fibonacci 2618 from the weekly. Once that was hit, snapped down and then right back through. Okay, no big deal. Gap and going to all-time highs, keep going. And this brings us to our crazy, nasty Powell downside candle. And the gist of this, if you didn't watch the Powell, is literally just the 25 rate cut. I think inflation somewhere between the 4.25 to 5 right now, or very close to that. And we are projecting only 2 rate cuts instead of 4 moving forward. That shook the market because that would signal inflation being sticky. Okay, so we're not going to get into too much sentiment there, but tiny Powell outlook there, creating an outside catalyst. What's an outside catalyst? Fear, hype, and greed. And this is obviously fear, hype, and greed data, which is going to come in for the Powell man to disrupt, this beautiful weekly. So if we come in and now we have a trend down and we know where the downside is, we're predicting 100 EMA daily on SPY. Once we get the downside, I don't care if it comes up to that lower high as we spoke about in the last videos, but walking the Fibonacci points of good measured Fibonacci's, this is a pretty good Fibonacci here in my opinion on the weekly, we would see something like if the 2618 fails, we know that the Fibs like to walk themselves back down. So we're just creating a historic support resistance on the bottom side to predict backside targets for our current price action. So if we leave this on and we are doing backside, which means the front side is already done, right? The backside of the Fib. If we're, again, generally looking at this weekly Fib, it's already went up and hit the 2618. We're not looking for any more upside trend because it's broken under. So unless it recovers the 2618 and then starts to fly off, we're not even worried about it. We're only worried about the downside after this short breakdown consolidation to become magnets back down, because we were over the 2618. Now we are under it. Now we can go to the 1618 potential. Now it tried to do that back here on the shy, but we didn't quite hit it yet, right? Almost hit it, tagged it, the fresh high break over, down, and now we can start targeting 577.34. Now that's not tomorrow or the next day, a general trend, right? So when we find confirmation coming into the next weeks here, that's what our long-term target's going to be. If we stay under 600.44, we will end up at 577.34. Even if we come back and tag into that or very close to, we're expecting to chase down that daily 10 SMA like we said in the last videos. Now, setting up for the week prior, we're going to leave these weeklies on, and that's just going to be our general range term for if we get that breakdown, we're going to start finding targets. That's what I like to do prior to getting that week down, I want to get some of my long-standing weeklies. Now, you got to pick these weeklies, like I said, something that hits a moving average, something that has a gap association, so on and so forth. So we're going to get those targets. Now, we're going to leave this on for a little bit and plan for the week ahead as we move into it. Now, the Powell dump candles are most interesting, and not going to spend too much time in this one because our last video does cover the recap on what we said was going to have a potential for play out here on the back test. Now, the Powell candle had no golden pocket, right? So the Powell dump created a inside little small consolidation candle that had missed the golden pocket. And then we said here, best case scenarios, we kind of close near 585, kind of a inside the range close, and then we could go long into the next week, and that's what we were going to look for. Well, unfortunately, we got that big old smash up. We just, again, shied that 50 fib. We wanted to stay way under. We wanted to stay under 593.68 because that would have been a first tag metric. And what we mean by that is the first time price action runs into something, right? Price action runs into a fib, a moving average, a gap. First time it's seen it. This happens on all time frames, 1, 5, 30, daily, weekly. We look for it at all on a lot of the terms. So this hit of the golden pocket, we didn't have one. GP was created off this candle of the Powell. Consolidation candle did nothing but shy it, and then we finally broke into at least the bottom section of the golden pocket, obviously here between the 50 and 61.8. Now, once that happens, we find a rejection point of that, and it came down and closed where we wanted it to close, right? Because our close call was closing somewhere inside the body of this candle, and it just made it back in. And, it did come back down. Now, unfortunately, again, worst case scenarios, we had already pushed into the golden pocket. Now, the golden pocket has been tagged, and we can actually go back to that downside. We're going to have to use the 50, like we said in that video, and the 50 only, okay? So we're coming into the new week. It's Sunday. Usually I'll jump into the week and I'll look at, obviously, our news points. Do we have CPI? Do we have a Powell going on? What's going on? So Sunday newsletter in my group of the Discord, we pop into the daily notes, and then we're going to plan accordingly for that. But to set up the start, and if you're a futures trader, we're going to move over to some of the basic stuff on ES because this does open at 5 p.m. and then we're going to come back to SPY. So 5 p.m. Central Sunday, this is going to open up. And tell you what we're going to do here. Now, the 50 SMA, as we said last video, is the biggest precursor. So my setup is going to start with the obvious. With the big Powell setup candle, we got the golden pocket tag and the 10 SMA tag. Futures generally tend to outpace the ETFs because they are open longer. What I mean by outpace is they just stretch past their levels a little more. So if something comes into a 10 SMA like this and you expect it to bounce perfectly like a SPY does, it won't. It'll slap through the 10 for a while and then go. Same conditions here. We have a Powell high-low candle here on the ES. We broke through that 100. It ranged back into the golden pocket. Did it stop right at the 50 nicely? No. Did it stop right at 61? No. We already tagged the 61.8. So this is another reason that here, we trade off the SPY and QQQ, not quite the futures, especially when they're open pre-market, so on and so forth, because ES sometimes does moves ahead of time, again, front-running what the SPY can do. And there's a big divergence there that will always catch up inevitably, eventually down the road. So we already got a golden pocket tag on ES, but I wasn't worried about that. I was only worried about SPY's golden pocket, and that's why we were so long biased on this last Friday, so on and so forth. But now what do I do set up as a futures trader? Well, we're going to come into a futures trader setup by utilizing the Powell candle, the weeklies, and the dailies. Same thing. So this is going to be a fresh setup, and we're going to go back to SPY for potentials. Fresh setup. Bam. So this is the all-time high last week, right? Obviously, you got to fib out the high-low. We're starting on a weekly time frame. All mine are usually teal, so do that real quick. Now, we did point this to the downside, because we do have expectation under the 50 SMA to have it. You can put it whatever way you want. Doesn't matter until it's outside the box, okay? So the fib box or the high-low range, we're not really, you could just redraw your extension up. If it starts to break over the golden pocket, just reverse your 0 and 100s, obviously. So the high-low golden pocket here, about 6,014, okay? That's the weekly. Now, all I do is, for the weekly set, is I just get a weekly level out there of last week. We're coming into the week of 1230. We want to fib out the high-low of the last. Then we drop down to the daily chart because this is going to be where the new candle sets up. And this right here, obviously the close and the open are going to be predominantly the only levels that we got besides the Powell daily golden pocket, which we're not going to worry about at the moment. We have a one big level very close to our close, okay? Because usually futures don't leave gaps like the SPY, because again, they trade for 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday, or Sunday through Friday rather. And 23 of those hours are trade, 1 of those are shut down. Now, again, that reflects on SPY having to catch up, QQQ having to catch up to these front run moves on the futures, which is good and bad, right? So as we open up, as a futures trader, I like to play some of that open, right? And again, we don't really get gaps. So it's going to open very close to the close here, about 6,000. Obviously, the algos picked a very nice and close range to close at, because when you look at that intraday there, we had this muscle move up, and then it closed within a couple points of 6,000, which, why not? The magnet for algos and how they speak to each other, they're going to want to close very close to that half whole dollar here at 6,000. And then you see we're kind of bouncing that intraday. Big takeaways from a day like this, though, on a huge bounce day, we start looking at those shies, right? So we talked about the 50 SMA daily, which is going to be this big red guy right here. And then we talked about watching the close open very close to this. Now, what do we see here from Friday to Sunday's open? Well, we see it hit the perfect top of the golden pocket weekly, right? That's a creation because we already had that high low from the first couple days of the dump. Pushes down, wipes out through the 50, hits the 100. Now, because we already have 100 EMA tags for the day, so we're not looking for magnets of first tag like we discussed before. If price action would have popped up on the PCE data through the 100 EMA, never touched the 100 EMA and then ran back, we would know exactly where this pullback was going. Either way, we'd have a stronger conviction, right? The 50 SMA intraday is right here. We don't use that as much, just usually the 100, but for this example, we needed to throw it on for weekly and daily. So we cut through that 50, and we ended up right at that 100 EMA. Right at yesterday's close is 6,000, so we have all these markers. Now, what do we do with that? Well, pretty simple. If we are looking for in terms of backtest, I would go short biased at the open because the 50 SMA daily does not have a backtest, okay? Now, if we back out a little bit, we have chopped this a little bit here and there. Not a big deal. The Powell dump hit it first here on ES, okay? And then we came back over it, right? Rode it for a little bit, snapped it, instilled the panic under the 50 SMA daily, and then made the low and came back off the PCE push. Now, because we rebroke with such speed on that 50 SMA daily, I would like to see the price action of ES come down here, maybe lose the golden pocket lower end here, bounce into that 50 and go. But is that going to happen? Well, we're going to see. We're going to play the open. The prediction would be to watch the magnet back to the 50, and if it does not want it, it wants to hold that 61.8 and start to move back up, right? Or down, depending on where the open is, because we're not going to get another gap, but we're going to get a weekly tag and a 50 correlation. So we're going to come into this bounce and we're going to say, okay, well, we shied the 50, and that's going to be in the back of our minds, right? So if that opens up, comes into a weekly 598.50 and jumps ahead with support, that 50 SMA is no longer going to be in question. It's going to be running back towards that 10. But our trade call was for SPY. So ES could actually do this move, come all the way back down to the 50, bounce back up, and then grab that weekly standard deviation support golden pocket, 5980, and then start heading up. Why? Well, because SPY still has to complete the move. So we have the weekly on the ES, and we have SPY here chasing down a metric that we have not hit, and that is the 10 SMA. So this still leads me to believe that the 10 SMA still has a viable attempt, right, to click in. That's why we could see the ES fail to backtest. That's why this shy point of the SPY right here, right, 596.10, that is a shy point. Again, we don't have that hit from the Powell high-low, okay? You can use the body, and we got it, but we shrank it down. We wanted to open it up a little bit because of the 10 SMA. So that 10 SMA is going to be the point of interest for a hit. We had a open kind of into it and a Powell dump. I'm not really counting that because we opened under it, and then the next day we opened into it, and Powell, we smashed it around a little bit. We could still get a back test for downtrend, so on and so forth. So the SPY's importance, and again, it's closing right on the 50 SMA daily, right? We go into that intraday, we're going to see that close right on the SPY's 50 SMA daily. It's right here at 591.35, and that's our directional point. So the easy part about coming into Sunday and Monday is regardless if the futures dip the after hours after market coming into the ES's 50 SMA, it doesn't really matter too much because by the time it wants to collectively go down and back up, SPY finally opens up in the pre-market. It's not open for live trading, obviously. Goes through the midnight, comes into the pre, and then we have one of those pre-markets where I'm in chat saying, hey, we got this long bias, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, oh, why are we going long? What's confirmation? What's this? Well, the 50 SMA back test, right? We closed right on the 50. And if the futures ran down, bumped that 50 we just talked about as support, and then it wants to chase back up, what are we going to hit? Well, this 50. And then what's our final target? Well, we're kind of seeing if we can chase down the 10 SMA daily, right? Which Might be overlaps with these levels we can't really see. Must be hiding pretty good. So here, same gist. So if we do hold 50 SMA, the prior close, start to push back up. These are the early targets on the daily. 596.10 for the golden pocket. Then what? Well, probably have a little bit of a reaction candle, starts marching back up. Now, the only determining factor between these two things is how fast the 10 SMA catches up to how fast the bounce happens. So a new calculation of the 10 SMA at open is going to start, and it's going to move down a little bit, and it's going to put us into that golden pocket is my thesis. So if we open and we hold the 50 SMA daily, pushes back up, we're going to find ourselves on the SPY up in the top end of this golden pocket, which again, ES already did. So it's kind of giving us a future ailment saying, hey, ES, this is what ES did. SPY might follow, the ETF might follow, right? That's the lagged move. So if we do happen to come up here from the close of the 50, we're looking at 60 points on ES already into the top golden pocket where the 10 SMA could be moving into, right? Could be moving into. So when we see the, excuse me, when we see that calculation come into the golden pocket, right? Because we're chasing it back down after we have already 50 SMA'd support and heading back up, that could be a very viable long because, again, the ES has already told us, right? So these are all the little breakdown points I try to remember. Go back to ES just so you guys can see it. Remember all the things that I've already done. So the whole golden pocket on the weekly tag is already done for ES. It's done. The ES front ran it. But this can also be a future telltale sign. Well, hold it. ES did it. Why can't SPY reproduce it, right? Now, of course, catalysts are going to come and war headlines overnight, whatever happens to manipulation futures overnight equals at SPY. But I'm still going to look for the 50 SMA over under. And if we do maintain that, we're going to make it up to the 10, just like the ES already did. So when the news comes out Sunday and the trade exchange, we post that, we'll go through that Monday morning. So those are just the basic technicals that we run over for dailies, weeklies, and how we set up our fibs. And again, these are going to be a little different because we're at all-time highs. We just had a big old Powell dump. So back to, I just want to track back here on the ES's weekly real fast. That 10 SMA weekly was already hit too. I don't want you guys to forget about where that 10 SMA weekly is because this is going to be your bear case. Because when that 50 SMA, let's say it gets capsized on SPY, becomes resistance, we're going to have to look for a stronger time frame management, right? Because we do still have the contract gap that we ran back to. And sometimes it takes a while for these contract gaps to fill, but on a weekly time frame, they always fill. So if you zoom out right here is the last one. We ran for a month and a quarter there, about 5 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did the breakdown, chased down the gap, and had an extension. Well, it's looking kind of similar here to where, you know, if we territorially do break back up right here, just give it a one more lower high, snap under the 10 SMA, we'll be chasing that gap side, okay? So this gives us more of our targets leading into the week because the breakdown of that 10 SMA, it's going to be very directional up here. We're not going to have any kind of super hard evidence. When we build these Saturday watch lists, we're going to get more in depth, not at all-time highs, because we're going to have a bunch of weekly, daily levels we're going to be able to use from historic values. But right now, it's all we got. So the gap right here in the weekly is going to be a huge watch under the 10 SMA. This is building our short case, right? So just to you know, guys, keep in mind that this golden pocket is already done. So if SPY, right, it's all 50 SMA daily oriented over under. If this does not want to hold that 50 and start running back up, and we already hit the bear side of things, we stay under the 50 and under the golden pocket. We know exactly what to start looking for on the bottom side to attack that weekly. Now, I like to come into my weekly fib last but not least after I determine where my weekly, which is really easy, the last week's high low, where my daily is, where the moving averages is. I like to see what has filled the fibs, okay? And for us, the algorithms, according to what we like to see is they like to talk to each other, right? So if the highest point of our weekly is the all-time high, 6160.75, we have a little gap in data up here, right? No? And then all of a sudden we created one to the backside here, right? And that new weekly candle, because we're gonna have to go back and forth daily and weekly, that new weekly candle has a fresh set of Fibonacci here, okay? And half candle retrace and all sorts of first tag metrics. So I'm really banking on the new weekly tag. So wherever it opens up here, we're obviously closed right here in the golden pocket. So the first tags of this weekly are going to be that 614.63, 5979.33. This little golden pocket is going to be a huge channel for us. And if we can't even get over this channel right here, we're definitely heading back down to that 10 and cracking through. So what I like to take a peek at is what the daily left in between. So the weekly, obviously high-low. The daily chart is what we're talking about here, left action. on the bottom of that fib, or the top of the fib, where the bottom did not. And what I mean by that is if you took, oh, it's already on screen. If you have these weeklies, right, the 61, 64, 23 down to the bottom, notice that when the creation, the creation candle is the last one, is obviously the low. So we're looking to our right, we did supersede that Powell candle a little bit, kind of bringing us to fresh low. This is my worrisome for that long. It's that daily gap in price action. The all-time high has a little gap with 2 days worth up here that needs to fill for the weekly Fibonacci inside on the daily chart, right? So that's one thing for the bull case, bear case, and that's the setups. Now, when we come into over-unders, right, the market's going to open up. We're going to see intraday, obviously. We're going to head back down too. We're going to start looking at oscillations. So as I come into all the weekly and daily breakdowns done, we know where we're at, where we're wanting to see our big heavy hitters. We know where our weeklies are. We know where our dailies are. These are going to be first tag metrics. So again, coming down to that weekly, that's a first tagger. That's why we were talking about earlier. It could hit that support run. If not, hits that 50 for the back test confirmation, so on and so forth. So we come back into oscillation. I like to look at the 5 and the 15 for oscillation. And if you guys got any questions, post them up. I only got about 5-10 minutes left here, and we're going to go over questions, concerns, breakdowns, and anything else you guys want to see for confirmation. And we'll go from there on that. Now, oscillation indicators intraday, okay? Oscillation as we come in. Now, as day trade scalpers, I'm setting up with this weekly with the 5-day 5-minute. Now, why I said short before, right? Why did I say short? Well, I didn't say it before. We didn't have them up, but look, we're in the bottom side of the RSI, and we're leaked down into the bottom of the MAC. Now, could this cause a little bit of a bounce back up? Sure, but inevitably, trend is still needed. And most importantly, when the RSI is in the bottom channel, MACD, the trend can continue. We already have a downtrend right here. Lower high, lower lows is set. And we have one magnet working for us. If you didn't see it quite yet, in the last time we were breaking it, we have one magnet that it needs. And that's going to be the 666. You notice this tall boy right here that slammed right through 59.80 and then got the +2 VWAP range even. It just hugged outside the +2 VWAP, which is crazy. That broke through the 666 5-minute, which is right here, also resulting in downside. So now, when I'm coming into the new day, the end of Friday here is telling me I have a 3-down potential. I have a backtest potential 50, backtest potential 666. So as a day trade scalper, all my trade setups, I got my levels. It's let's say it opens up, right? Here's the open. What can it do? Well, it could easily pop to the 50 or pop to that first tag weekly and then start slamming back down to chase the 666 and 50 backtest targets, right? So my first trade setup as a day trade scalper in the futures is going to say, okay, well, we have a 2-down, which is kind of got knocked off of its rocker here by this last little high term right at close, which is fine. No big deal. It's not really considered a full 3-down then because the 2-down kind of cracked over that high, and it just kind of got weird there at the end because of after hours, whoever, earnings or whatever else can always pop it back and forth. Now, so that's kind of in the question of, hey, we are holding that 100 EMA so we can get the temporary pop, drop back, 666, 50, great. So now I know that the trend, the oscillation, the price action, and moving average magnets are all telling me a short-term pullback at open is very viable, right? Because we're coming off of a 10 SMA daily hit. We're coming off of even a yesterday's highs hit. Coming back down for, oh no, it's going to be daily, back up. Do we have that fib? I don't have it on this chart. We have a 15-minute no-tag fib over here that we had up here as well. Is it on this chart? Nope. Okay, no big deal. Now, we'll post that in our Discord anyway as the trade setup comes to fruition here at Sunday night, tomorrow night. So I have all my dailies, all my weeklies. That's my trade sentiment. That's how I get my opening trade sentiment, right? And with the daily and weeklies now on SPY all set up, we're going to look for that same thing kind of into the pre, right? 3 a.m. stocks start trading here at Central Time from midnight to 3. The ETFs are open, and then 3 a.m. right here, the stocks will start really picking up volume because everything kind of kicks in after the ETFs. Now, we look for the same thing on SPY here, but it's more important rather because we do have a tag right here of the SPY's 50. It broke up. We already got that confirmational tag. So again, the lower is still predominantly better because if we can see that dip overnight into the pre-market, right, that would cause that rally to come back to the golden pocket that we had shied back here, giving us a really good dip by pre-market potential. That was the whole trade plan from the Friday breakdown when I left you guys last time on the YouTube anyway, so let's hope. Now, the last but not least, I didn't cover because we have the Powell candle here. On a normal sentiment day, I do want you guys to come back and do the last day as well. So another fib right here. And again, it's not if these fibs are going to work, it's when. You could fib out 10 different ones. Each level will hit eventually. Don't overfib yourself, okay? So as this thing comes in, I would prefer the last daily exchange and then just the weekly here. So the yesterday, Friday's candle. These are all going to be first take metrics as well. And this also helps us out a lot because when this comes through that 50 to the GP, and this is just pre-market, they can hold up pre-market, right? We have a couple different zones of supply and demand that need to be hit here too. We never came back and tested support here before it ran. So again, coming down early, futures down first, we could actually hug down to that pre and then rally up long and pre to a untagged daily, right? Because we could open up here. But best case scenario is futures drag us down here. We start to see that 4 a.m., 5 a.m. magic start to happen. And then poof, we get that long into the no tag golden pocket because price action has a great chance to be somewhere in the range of yesterday's high low fib, 588.35. Right in the middle there. And then, of course, like we said, the other Fibonacci's that are still in play that are untagged. I know it gets a little messy. We got yesterday's, and when they start overlapping, that's when it gets really exciting because we get more fibs to do more things. So the top of the highs here is also mixed with that golden pocket no tag. So yeah, it's looking really, really nice to 50 SMA over under daily. And then if we do get under it, hit those golden pockets, slow down, and then we do have a great shot to the downside. Over the 50, hit those golden pockets, has a Monday, Tuesday grind. Now we're chasing over the 10. So unfortunately, this one is a little bit tougher to read out because we do have the Powell candle and just starting those big fancy rate cuts and inflation sticky. So we're not utilizing historic weekly support resistances, but we do have a lot to work with. That is perfectly fine. So again, short side target 577.34. That's the easy one. 100 EMA. That's going to be a first tag metric as well. We talked about these in every one of our YouTube recaps. So catch those little 10 to 15s. So last time we broke over to that 100, shy, hit 50. So again, very good opportunity to be pushing up here into the early amount of the week to the failure. So I'm going to be banking on that. We'll be scalping the crap out of everything. Any questions you guys have on the weekly breakdown, let me know. And what we want to be moving forward with is what we're going to be setting up for sentiment. So coming the next Saturday, and I got 2 of the 3 YouTube videos here, sentiment, I'm going to roll them into one. I think I just edit it up quick. We are going to move into option sentiment. So I'm going to teach you guys how I utilize the daily high-low of options off of implied volatility. It's like a 65%er. A lot of you guys are asking about options because I watch them sometimes intraday when we don't have anything else, and people get confused when I'm like, oh, the bid dropped off on this strike because we picked it on a 1 or 2 day out, and they're like, oh, how did we see that? Well, I'm going to give you guys an implied volatility of long-term on the next video where we do weekly and daily. So we come into the market, the implied volatility for a specific day is XYZ, and 60, I'll go over the bell curve when we have the picture. It's a 65% of the time curve move where it could actually move whatever the implied volatility of that day is. So we'll go over to that. What's going on, chat? Will the half candle retrace play on deck for tomorrow, even though we have a small candle? For which ticker? I mean, we got a pretty decent size here, but if we're talking SPY here, half candle retrace is going to be viable if the price action gets there. Only worry about it when price action is heading there. Don't worry about it for like an exponential magnet, because we have a couple different things that are way too strong that will trump a single day's high low. So if we're talking just single day, like we have right here, half candle retrace, where the half of the candle, we call it HCR here at Boiler Room Trading. What our member is talking about there is the halfway retrace point. Now, why that doesn't matter quite as much as you'll probably see it right here, but the Powell candle, see this guy right here, the lower of that is already pretty much at half candle retrace. So when we talked about 585.83 on our last YouTube video being a great over under for that huge long, right? Gets back into the Powell candle, starts pushing up. We have a good metric, and that's already at half candle retrace. So we do have something on the chart that is kind of trumping yesterday's half candle retrace. Will it still be viable? Of course. Is it close? Yeah. Is it dead on? Absolutely not. But it will have a great force if it gets there. I'm only worrying about it if the price actually gets there. So let's say we open up under that 50, we start heading back down. This half candle retrace, absolutely on deck. I am feeling a little better, Moody. Thank you. Yep. The biopsy for my cancer result was a little bit annoying. So, I just smacked my mic. So I was a little under the weather, didn't get any sleep, and then even last night was not the greatest of sleep. Only got about 4.5. But we woke up, man. Can't be upset. We woke up today. You know how many people didn't get that gift? Too many, unfortunately. Too many. If it opens inside the body, yep. So if it opens inside the body, sorry, I didn't see that. If it opens inside the body, that's the number one tall tale sign. So he's talking about a great elite system where if we open up inside yesterday's close, the half candle retrace will persist, right? So let's just go to a different chart, do it real fast here on an example for questions. So what Sam's talking about right here is half candle retrace and high low. So when we take the high low fib, we can also do a body high-low fib, right? So we do high-low sometimes, we do body sometimes. When you got a really big body like Powell, you can just take the body. You're going to get more accurate targets. The wider ones, again, will hit eventually, but you just got to plan per volatility. And that's something that, when I'm coming into the day, I didn't even cover the VIX. Good call. So I'm going to go over that right now too. So when I'm coming into the day, I see how high the VIX is. That's one of my biggest reasons of why I draw fibs the way they are. But what Semper is saying right here is half candle. Are we going to utilize the 586.46, which that was actually the imbalance zone as well. We have a FVG there and a couple other decent algorithms that speak as they blew right through yesterday's close and lows, and that's why that's going to be a value area. So some's asking, if we close inside the body, right? Which again, it's his play. These catalysts overlap. His play he's talking about on the fibs are what we just talked about for the 50. You see the 50 SMA daily. This will recalculate a little bit, but it's dead nuts on the yesterday's close. So when I say, hey, it's going to trend under 50 and come down to half candle retrace fibs, he's saying the same thing. He's just saying, hey, are we going to go under yesterday's close down to half candle retrace? Same thing, same exact thing. Look where the body is of the close. Look where the 50 is, right? So these systems, whether you're doing fibs, moving averages, retraces in 50%, the market tentatively will stack them. And if we can get more things or multiple indicators telling us the same thing at the same price level, that's what we do here. We call it catalyst stacking. So one thing I want to touch on here before we jump off, and we're going to get much longer streams here coming up because I got lesson plans and I'm learning the numbers and the fun little slideshows. I got those building up here. I'm stoked about those actually. Probably too much, but I love the Apple for building the slideshows. So the VIX, so the volatility index, something I do want to, we'll do it in correlation here. We can just put it on the side. Something I do want to talk about real fast is in accordance of which way I draw the fibs. Now, we've been having some very low volatility, boring trade times here. You can see on the daily chart where the VIX was just yucky for quite some time. We're in the low teens, 13, 14. We weren't doing anything, which means the market isn't going to put in large candles, right? If you look over here, low VIX, which is like under 15, 16, I consider that my low point. 15, 16 is a usual channel. For under that for the VIX, the candles are going to be boring. We're not going to be utilizing too much, and that's why I've been creating those Fibonacci's on the high-low. Once the VIX shows strength and we start to get range, we're going to start using the bodies more often because they're much larger, and that gives us a much more accurate target for our partial takeoffs. And what I mean by that is when the VIX is high, and right now even it closed down at 18, so that's still up there. It's not 20 plus. That's the fear number for me, the old 20 and above. That is extra fear, okay? And then in between that 18 to 20, that's like good momentum. We can actually get some good moves off that yet. And then sub 15 is just junker. Take your profits as fast as you can, and we're not going to have any kind of clear follow through. But yeah, thanks for the reminder here. As we come into volatility, or we do, gaps, so on and so forth, like we have right here, we will be, I look to the VIX and I go, well, how high is the range of the VIX, and are the candles getting real big on the chart? Well, start using the bodies as well, right? And again, this is usually done by half candle retrace. We have a code that puts half candle retrace on our charts, and these fibs become not obsolete, but the only thing I worry about on a body high-low is the 50 waypoint. That's why we put the half candle retrace indicator on here, so we don't have to fib it out. So when I fib out high-low, we still always have half candle retrace on there because the 50% fib is HCR. It's the half candle. So we do always have that on the chart. It just isn't drawn in a fib form. So yeah, with the close right here, in the open here, so open, close, we have that 50 right here, 586. So yeah, if we get under that 50, come all the way down to the golden pocket, bounce that, maybe get a live test of that 50, but I don't know, man. I just think we could still get a bearish metric coming into the low volume. And it might be just a crap Monday. We put in a red candle there, and then that Tuesday, Wednesday, out of nowhere push comes in. With Gandhi the 28th, oh, that's going to be a pretty fun one. I think it's going to be set up for this week. Yep, for sure. Because the VIX plus low equals small, slow candles. Yeah. So Semper is talking about too, we have a certain number of metric stuff that we have potential volatility days on Gandhi, and the 28th, obviously being the short Santa rally week. A lot of the times the Santa rally comes and it knocks people off their rockers, and a lot of people that, oh, the Fed rate cuts, it's the end of the world, Santa rally's canceled. Well, it shied the 100 EMA, rip-roared it, and we could rip-roar it for the Santa rally till the end of the year. It comes to Q1 and then pull back maybe in Q1 and chase that 100 EMA, because unfortunately our target was the 100 EMA for the short, and we did it in pre-market. See, 576.98. This big hard green line, that's the 100 EMA daily. So we did shy that, and that was our short target for the SPY. And of course, we bounced early. It front ran it, is what we call it. It's when the price action starts developing the move before an actual tag. And it's been doing that quite a bit lately. Quite a bit. Awesome. So I'm going to get this live up, and I'm going to get it into a live playlist. And that'll be that. I didn't see any more questions pulling up. But thank you for tuning in for the trade setup. For my class, for Monday morning, I think I have time. I'm going to start a little early. So if you guys want to tune in, everybody that tuned in early here, I'm going to hop on the stream early, and we're going to go over everything that we just covered here in the live again, right? So we can kind of determine, hey, we said 50 SMA over under. We said high-low Fibonacci. We said the body here. And I'm going to go over everything again to refresh your guys' brain into Monday. So I think Monday we're gonna enter in early, and I might even do a Sunday open stream if I can swing it. And the kiddos are off all week and Christmas. We are gonna be doing some fun stuff, and I should get some time, but I will come in Monday early. I'm gonna pop in early here and just hop on a half hour early, and we're gonna see what that sentiment looks like in the pre, and maybe get some live trades in pre. Because I wanna start maybe Monday early a little bit, because if we do Saturday or Sunday, we're going to plan for our week ahead, and then early on Monday we can get those futures moves, and then even Sunday streams we're going to get in for the futures open. End of year hedge fund need to print green, yeah, and that's again, that's like seasonality and sentiment, where hey, we have a Santa rally. Okay, out of the last 40 times, how many times has it failed? Okay, 5. Well, what's the general percentage of how many times it worked versus not worked? You're going to want to be on the work side, right? You're not going to be on the probability side of failing 5 out of the whatever 30, 40 times it worked. I have a beautiful screen. What's the PC? Well, I actually got off PC, and I just got rid of my PC, and I swapped to Mac. This is the brand new MacBook M4 Max with whatever the max RAM is, 128. So it's a maxed out MacBook Pro actually only. And we're just utilizing a little green screen, a little bit of the chroma filter, and we're just streaming through OBS. So it's actually just a MacBook Pro. No spy. I had a 4090 fully built 64 gig PC, 13900 CPU, NVIDIA, you name it, and it just doesn't keep up like a tiny little MacBook Pro does for this style of work. PC actually, as far as in my experience, just with what I'm doing right here and just learning streaming and social medias and bringing all my trade concepts to light, and hopefully get that. I don't have anything special. It's just the M4 Max chip. That's the highest one they sell, and right now, and then the 128 gigs of RAM. And we're running 3 monitors plus the open MacBook Pro. We can actually add one more if we wanted to, but I don't even use this right side one. I'm gonna be minimizing here. We're gonna run 2 32s, I think, or very close to, and then just the MacBook screen. That's it, because I figured out how we're going to draw on the screen too. So we got some exciting stuff coming. So we're going to do some lives here. My partner Connor is live 10 a.m. Central on most weekdays. If you guys ever want to check him out, or if you're new, go follow Connor over on, I think it's just his name, Connor Perfia. I can't even, Polydifria. We can link his channel. Oh, his channel's linked in the description of this one. We'll put, yeah. But yeah, he'll be on 10 a.m. Central most time after our private stream too. So if you want to check out a lot of Anchor View apps and a lot of good stuff that he puts out, check it out. This is going to be a series that we're going to come on. We're going to break a little bit down here on Saturdays. We're going to go over some big learning stuff coming up with sentiment and options next. So next week coming up, and throughout the week, I have 2 other videos coming out. I'm pretty stoked because the whole setup is done, and we're filming, and we're getting her, and the videos will be popping out here. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll get a live playlist up if you want to rewatch any of the parts here. We'll see you guys bright and early Monday early. I'm going to stop on about 30 minutes early. We're going to come in early to see how and break down for the live group here in our premium group that showed up for the play calls, and hopefully tomorrow as well. I'm going to try to pop in tomorrow, the 5 p.m. open, at least sit down here from 5 to 6:30. Well, maybe we'll stream that live too. So you guys take care. Have a good rest of the weekend. We'll get the playlist up, and you guys trade safe for the rest of the remainder of the week if I don't see ya. But we'll see you in chat, and take care.